Hold up, I ain't trying to stump, man, but the Yeezys jumped over the jump, man. I be in and out of arenas like I'm Scottie Pippen. Left my elbow in the pot, a la Vince Carter.
Bitch, you weren't with me shooting in the gym?
James Harden with the range on me, nigga, way back.
Coach, they won't knock me off my pivot, forget it.
Been flowing stupid since Vince Carter was on some through the legs arm and a hoop shit.
And you can live through anything if magic made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, now you do.
Yes, sir. We are back. Round of applause for yourselves. Man, lots to talk about today. We're going to talk about AD. Is he ready to take over for LeBron? And just the Lakers this season, they don't really look like that championship squad. And we'll hear from Adam Silver as he speaks on social media and some of the influence it has on the policies being made throughout the league. It's almost like they're using social media in real time to get feedback from the audience. And also James Harden making his way back home to LA. We'll break down some of his comments he made about his Philadelphia exit and what he expects his role to be in Los Angeles. And finally, we'll talk about the Taylor Swift effect hitting the NBA as they collaborated with Kim Kardashian, as Skims will be the new official underwear of the NBA. Now with LeBron James entering his 20th season in the NBA, and the Lakers, some of their perimeter players are struggling with catch and shoot threes like Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell from time to time, and just the overall continuity on the court, especially with defensive rebounding. The Lakers just don't look like they need to be where they're supposed to be going, which is towards a championship. A lot of people are asking themselves, when is AD actually going to take over this team? Because initially he joined the Lakers when LeBron James was 35. And at some point, the plan was for Anthony Davis to take over for LeBron, especially as he entered his own prime years. And with the inconsistency of Anthony Davis just being available, it leaves us scratching our heads as what was the Lakers front office thinking during this summer, just even considering that they're about to enter the next season with a 39-year-old as their star player. Now, Gilbert Arenas and Raja Bell spoke on this and they gave a player's perspective. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
I'm on AD a lot, and I am. And listen, I'm not saying that he's not a phenomenal player, but like I guess I would be asking you, what do you think they need to do? Is it a move? Is it simply, do you believe in AD to be the one that can carry that, you know, in a way that will allow them to win a championship if LeBron isn't able to? Let's say he's playing 60 games or 65 games, and it's not an every night thing in the playoffs where you're going to get that performance. Is AD capable? Do we need another piece there? Like, what does Gil think?
Yes, I think as a Laker fan, I think that the Lakers organization is delusional. And the delusion of what you're watching, right? We know how he's playing, right? But to go into the free agent as LeBron's the number one option was the mistake that you're making, right? You should say, all right, mentally, LeBron is 38, right? He's 38, 39. We need someone to come in as our first or second option, right? We need our Jason Tatum. We need our Kyrie.
And I'm wondering if the Lakers are not saying nothing about Anthony Davis's performances due to the business ties with LeBron James's Clutch Sports. Let's remember, Anthony Davis is, I believe, the second biggest client for Clutch Sports, and especially with that large extension he just re-signed for. So there are business ties with Anthony Davis, and I believe the Lakers don't want to ruffle any feathers with LeBron James and Rich Paul's Clutch Sports.
That should have been a big move for them, knowing that we do have LeBron James, but if you take him out of the equation, how good is the team? Because in a sense, if you're relying on a 38, 39-year-old, you are delusional. I don't care what he's looking like. He's 38, 39. If we're relying on 39 years old, then something is wrong with us as an organization. We should have made all the right moves to get someone in here who can carry the team, knowing that we got LeBron. We do have LeBron. And I think we went into it saying, we have LeBron, we don't need anybody else. Like,
And then you also combine that with them just signing guys like Hachimura and Tyranian Prince, a lot of role players they're signing. And it's almost like they're treating them as if they were like starters or just guys that contribute consistently. Guys like Christian Wood, whose motor is always being questioned. Those type of signings, when you see the Lakers surround LeBron, well, I should say older LeBron and AD with these type of guys, you wonder if is this really building a championship squad? Because you used to be able to get away with this with LeBron, as we've seen in Cleveland, where they surround him with a bunch of older players and just a bunch of questionable role players, and he still led them to the finals. But now LeBron being at his age, surrounding him with these type of role players, especially AD just still playing second fiddle, this ain't really gonna work.
I think why we get on AD is we know he's where Joel Embiid and Jokic and Greek the Freak is. We know that's the level you're on.
That's the level he's on, but unfortunately for AD, it's just the way he plays is so clunky, the way he lands, and just, I don't know if he thinks he's a guard, but the way he plays is just not going to lead him to be healthy consistently. He's got to play more like a big and have the understanding like, okay, you don't need to jump for certain balls, or you just don't need to act like you're a perimeter player. You don't have that type of flexibility.
The difference is they are playing every goddamn game. They're there for their team. Like,
You're speaking Roger's language right now. You know?
I don't even know.
like right now, what's stopping you from averaging 32, 31, and 12?
Him?
They're one in the NBA besides yourself.
Yeah, him.
Damn.
Just he's the one stopping it.
Yes. Look at them empty legs over there, man. Come on.
And I wish Raja actually elaborated more, because it's not just his play. I'm telling you, it's just his style of play. He plays as if he's a perimeter player. He needs to understand he's a big, that he can get hurt. AD plays way too awkward for a big man. He has to understand and try to conserve his energy, or just conserve his legs for certain plays. It's just the way he lands. He just thinks that he's still 18 or he's still 19. He thinks that he's some sort of guard, and he's not.
Put them things up so we can get the moving, man. Like I was saying, like we put LeBron. This is what we. If we take LeBron James and put him in Philly with Maxey and Joel Embiid, that's what that's what we should be looking like on this side.
Yeah.
Just get it done, AD. Like if AD turns into the number one option where he's like, yo, I'm 33 and 12, and we have D'Lo playing the way he's playing, LeBron 20, we good.
AD wouldn't even really have to average 33 points. He could average about 28. As long as his efficiency keeps it up and his defensive numbers stay up, the Lakers would be fine. But right now, him averaging 23 points, it's just not going to cut it. LeBron looks like he's not even going to average more than like 22 points for the season. LeBron James at this point, he can only felicitate the offense.
Because we
Correct.
still got LeBron. But the problem is AD is taking the backseat to LeBron, which kind of like, come on, he's 38, man. Just like, yo, get out the way, brother. I got this.
So you know, as we work our way through the weeds on that, right? Like that, I think is one of the most underrated parts of it, and it's not touched on enough. LeBron thought that torch was going to be passed, right? It didn't get passed. Now, this is going to sound crazy, but part of that is LeBron's fault. Not because of anything he did, but because of the reverence that I think that like an AD has for LeBron. Can you dig what I'm saying? Like he's still, you know, they're boys, but I think still kind of probably in big bro. That's big bro.
And interesting enough, you know, the Lakers were rumored to get Kawhi, PG-13. All these guys said that they were interested in going to the Lakers before LeBron showed up. And as soon as LeBron showed up, none of them chose the Lakers anymore. And it's really coming down to that mentality. A lot of these guys are not going to sit around and be big broed by LeBron. And even though AD's talent is of a number one option, he does not have the leadership and the mentality of a number one option. A lot of teams fail to recognize that with some of their stars. He's not the only superstar in the NBA that has this issue. There's a number of players. We could throw James Harden into that mix also, but there's other names too. But NBA teams, a flaw that they usually have is, you know, almost correlating talent to leadership. In a lot of cases, especially in this pro player movement era, it is shown that that is not the case at all.
And that's what I touch on with AD. It's not a skill set thing. It's a mentality thing. Because dudes who will take that torch and run with that shit, they don't have a big bro.
Yeah, and in
They,
fact,
they are big bro. They are Debo. So they're like, yo, get the fuck out of the way, LeBron. Like, sit down, motherfucker.
I mean,
got this.
They're Kyrie in 2017, 2018.
Straight up. And so like that's the thing, right? Like you know, that's the crazy part about the makeup of the individual in that situation might prevent him from fully saying, yo, this is mine. And LeBron is okay with this being mine because LeBron knows it needs to be mine. And I don't think he for whatever reason, he ain't on that.
But to your point, that it always comes with chaos, though, right? If you want to, there's no passing, no torches. Torches get taken, they don't get passed. Like the same with like you had that with Kyrie a few years ago, and you had that with Kobe and Shaq, where he's like, nah, man, this is my team. I want this right here, and it causes friction.
Kobe was willing to fight Shaq physically to take the team over. So it definitely does come down to the mentality. Guys who want it, they're going to take it no matter what. And the fact that LeBron James is 39 years old, he's breaking down in the court, and everyone's still questioning when is AD going to take it, he's never going to take it.
See a world where you just pass batons. Like even like in San Antonio, Kawhi, they had trouble doing that. You know, like it's hard.
you can't pass it because it has to be earned. And when you feel you earn something, you're not asking for it, right? You're not asking, even though the guy's like, here you go. That has to be earned. Like, just give it there. Like, I know you're holding it, but let me, like, I can grab it softly, or I can just go ahead and give it to me. Like, that makes like, oh, okay, you want to be a big boy now. Yeah. All right, let's see. Right? And I don't think that's where they are. Even no matter how many conversations you have, that's not something that can be talked about. Like nobody realized when I was in Golden State, the last 4 or 5 minutes, I was the guy taking all the shots. I was the fourth, fifth option on the team. The last 5 minutes, I'm the number one option. There was no conversation. This is what I'm going to do, right? If you can do it better than me, ask for the ball at the end. And then I had to prove points where I wouldn't shoot the whole game. Now we down. Now, hey, GA, you going to shoot? Yep, there we go. That's all I want. You gonna shoot? We need you. There we go. That's all you had to say, right? So, right, and from there, so when I left, and then Antoine came back, there was no conversation on who was the number one option, right? There was none. He just won 6th Man of the Year. He's the max player. He's coming here. There's no conversation. We already know. It's already been established 2 years prior when we was at Golden State together.
I think you're both right, but I don't think LeBron fights him for it. Can you dig what I'm saying? Like Shaq wasn't ready to. LeBron understands in a way that I mean, because he's one of the greatest of all time and he's played longer than like he understands his time. So I don't think he fights him for it. But to the point you all made, AD got to take the shit. Like LeBron's got to see you want the motherfucker before he says, I'll give it to you.
I believe LeBron James wants AD to take it, but he's not ready to take it. And once again, like I said before, there's business ties with AD. He's one of the biggest clients in Clutch Sports. So I don't think LeBron James wants to ruffle the feathers too much at this point. And he's at the tail end of his career. He's at the glory point pretty much. He's trying to make himself into a big star. Championships is not really the main goal here, but it's LeBron James. I mean, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind getting another championship, but at this point, the business of LeBron James seems to be the bigger goal here in Los Angeles, as we've seen it play out with him and his production company, and just his name overall just being around the bigger media sphere outside of the NBA.
He's trying to give it to him without even seeing you want the motherfucker. He's like, here. He's like, please take it.
Even with Kyrie, like, look, I don't think people understand how smart LeBron is. Like, he understands what he can do and what others can do. Like, there was no fight over the ball with Kyrie. He understood, hey, I'm going to do my thing first 3 quarters. Kyrie.
There was a game in San Antonio, like their first year together. You remember that, Gil? I don't know. There was a game where they went to San Antonio and
Kyrie had like
Kyrie
a 50
won the
ball.
game. Damn near won the game by himself. It was like a double over. That was the time where that was the give me that fucking baton game. I was like, no, it's mine. Thank you.
Yeah, Kyrie completely took over that game. He dropped like 62 points. You'd even notice LeBron was even in that game. That's because Kyrie wanted it. That's the difference.
He understood what his talent is. Oh, use a finisher. Here you go. And that's how they played the game, and that's what made them so successful.
Interesting enough, when Raja said LeBron James is very smart, very calculated, and I wouldn't be shocked with him just selecting AD to be on the Lakers. Not only it paid off with Clutch Sports, him just signing big contracts while being part of that agency was part of the package. Also, AD's a follower. So at the end of the day, LeBron James, he was going to have an easier point of access to gain his points and pass Kareem to being the number one scorer in the league. So AD kind of played a backseat to that. I don't know too many guys on AD's talent level that would have took a backseat to that. But LeBron James is that calculated. He is that calculated. But at the end of the day, going back to Gilbert Arenas' initial point of the Lakers front office just entering this season with a 39-year-old LeBron James thinking that they're going to put kind of role players like D'Angelo Russell, who's up and down, newcomers like Austin Reeves, Hachimura, Taurean Prince, and a guy with a questionable motor like Christian Wood around LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and think it's good enough to compete for a championship. That old model used to work with LeBron James in his prime years, or his later prime years. But unfortunately, LeBron James, where he's at today, and just all the mileage on his legs, that plan is not going to work. And it's clearly showing to start off this season, and we're only in the beginning. But the Lakers right now, their continuity, they do not look like a championship team. So we'll see if Rob Pelinka does any shakeup at the trade deadline. And we'll also see if the Lakers have enough courage to trade Anthony Davis, possibly. Because so far in the 5 years that he's played for the Lakers, he played 62 games his first season. Then he played 36 games his second season, then 40, then 54. So his health was already up and down, but yet they still gave him that nice extension. Once again, business ties to LeBron James's Clutch Sports. I'm wondering if that's coming into play, but sometimes it takes courage to make these type of trades in order for the team to benefit and get up to the next level. We've seen Boston make this tough decision trading Marcus Smart, which now they're going to be elevated to go to the next level fully, while Jason Tatum and Brown have their prime years on that. And we've seen the same scenario play out for the Toronto Raptors when they traded away DeMar DeRozan, which is a beloved member of that team. When they traded him away for Kawhi, they were able to take a step up to the next level. Teams from time to time are going to have to make these tough decisions by trading a beloved member, which I would say AD is not really a beloved member of the Lakers. He's just sort of tied in business wise with the Lakers. He's tied in with LeBron's business, which affects LeBron, which then again affects the Lakers. Once again, we'll see how this plays out the trade deadline. I expect the Lakers to be at least trying to make some move, because so far the continuity with this team is just not it. So JJ Redick has sat down with the commissioner Adam Silver, and shout out to JJ, man. I see him making big moves, getting meetings with the commissioner. But Adam Silver gave a lot of insight on some of the priorities of the league, them focusing on the game itself and not allowing the entertainment portion of the game to kind of affect the competition. And he also spoke about the NBA's mergence with Twitter back in, I believe, 2015. No, it was actually in 2013. But that merge with Twitter actually allowed the league to kind of get in real time feedback from the NBA audience on what's working, what actually gets a reaction, what gets people talking about the league. But I'm not going to say no more. You guys check it out. And every once in a while, I'll check in.
Right now, the biggest issue the league is confronting is the expiration of our media deal. To be careful of, let's say we're going through a collective bargaining cycle, and we just did, that I can't stop everything else and spend all my time on that, because obviously the business has to move forward. Right now, the biggest issue the league is confronting is the expiration of our media deals. So that should and is my highest priority, but things have a way of just happening on our calendar. To me, it's to grow the game of basketball. I mean, one of the benefits to being on the top of the pyramid of the global game is that virtually everything that happens around the game in a positive way accrues essentially or over time to the NBA's benefit. To the extent that more kids, boys and girls, whether it's through the NBA or the WNBA, become interested in our league, play the game of basketball, play basketball video games, engage in social media around the game. All that to me is largely positive for the game. I mean, you and I could go on. There's some bad aspects of that, of course.
You speaking on the competition, the competition for the young children's eyeballs. You know, the league right now, especially among, I would say, children under the age of, I would say 15 to about 9, 8, 7 years old, the league has a lot of stiff competition from trying to gain that audience's attention span. And Ja Morant, that's the importance of him, is that he somehow, with his charisma and just his play on the court, he attracts that demographic. So that's why he's very important to the NBA, and just him acting up is such a blow to the league. But Ja Morant himself is the NBA's direct access to that audience. But like Silver was saying, there are positives with them interacting with the video games and other things like social media around the game, but there are drawbacks because those mediums at the same time, they do impose as competition for the league in order to gain that attention span of those children.
And I have to remind myself, and I like the way you put the question, because I've lost my focus along the way as well. And we should talk a little bit about that. Sort of my theme for this season is back to basketball in some ways, that the game is at the core of everything we do. And to me, having that discipline to be thinking every morning that as I look out at my day, what am I doing that's focused on the game itself, improving interest in the game, improving the quality of play. There's all these wonderful things that have happened around the business and outside the business, but it's including the massive interest in social media with our players and everything about basketball. But I often have to remind myself that all stems from the quality of play on the floor, the quality of the competition.
Now, like Silver said, the growing theme of this season is back to basketball. Ironically, we do have to factor in this happens to come into play because they are in the midst of negotiations for a brand new TV deal. Also, TV partners like ESPN and TNT have put a lot of pressure on the league for guys missing out on these nationally televised games. That's where the rest policy comes into play. And ironically enough, in the beginning of this very season, we've seen those dynamics kind of play out in real time. When ESPN had Woj tweet out what's going on with a TNT broadcast with James Harden not playing for the 76ers. I mean, come on. At the same time, just think about it. Why is ESPN so concerned about a TNT broadcast? It's almost like we're seeing both of these competitors almost collaborate to make sure that the league enforces their policies where their stars show up to their games. So Adam Silver right now has a lot of different things coming his direction. A lot of proxy wars are going on. Once again, that James Harden situation, it was a little bit more than just him not playing for the 76ers and just his ongoing battles directly with that team. Once again, ESPN did a whole segment and a whole article, and they had their biggest TV analyst, Woj, tweet out that they had asked the NBA what's going on with a TNT broadcast that James Harden is not playing. And this low-key kind of went under the radar. Adam Silver has a lot of things coming at his desk, but that is definitely a Cold War move as the NBA is about to approach the negotiation table this spring with Turner Sports and ESPN. But Silver also spoke about the mergence with Twitter back in 2013 and how the league almost uses Twitter to see the NBA's audience reaction to certain things in real time. What players do they react to? What storylines? And sometimes this even shapes their policy around the game itself.
And even to the extent it's a meme or it's a theme on social media, I find that we need to enter the conversation. In some cases, if it's factually wrong, to do our best we can to correct the record. In some cases, to try as best we can to guide the conversation. And in other instances, to react to the conversation. And to your point, I mean, NBA Twitter is real. I mean, it's a humongous audience of people. In fact, Twitter or X told us recently, I mean, sports is the number one category of content on that service. I think people might think it's politics or fashion or something else, but it's actually sports. And it really, not just the NBA, of course, but drives that platform, as is the case for Instagram and a lot of the other social media platforms. But it's part of, I think, my job to see if we can harness it to our advantage, because there's also enormous amount of negativity out there. I think that, and I also see as my job both to provide some I would say, guardrails for players, entering social media, but also to be protective to the extent we can as well, because it's, as you know, I mean, our players are in many cases sort of young folks who are sensitive. And as you, of course, well know, for any fan who thinks that's not the case, they're just off, that. And I'm always sort of, as an outsider to most locker rooms, amazed when I hear that guys are actually looking at their phones at halftime. I'm like, because I don't even, there are things that I do that I find that it's incredibly distracting, even during the draft. If I'm on social media and somebody's making fun of me or laughing about the way I pronounce the name, I'm like, I find that incredibly distracting. I'm like, don't show it to me. I'll read it later. But I pay attention to it. I think it's my job to pay attention to it.
The NBA just measuring certain reactions in real time with Twitter, it kind of reminds me of how the Netflix in a way does this, because you can look at the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary on Netflix. It kind of went viral online. And I've seen the power of this in my own experience. I've seen my own girlfriend be influenced to watch that whole Jeffrey Dahmer series just off of social media, even though I told her about it months ahead. So Netflix does utilize the power of social media, and I wouldn't be surprised if they pay certain influencers to make memes or just make funny skits on some of these shows. And that's how these things tend to get watched. We've seen it play out during the pandemic with the Tiger King kind of documentary series that went viral online. And a lot of people were influenced to watch the show who normally would even never checked it out. But Adam Silver right here is confirming that the league definitely does take a look at NBA Twitter and what the fans are reacting to. And it's almost like they're getting feedback in real time to see how things are working. We take the in-season tournament, for example, just seeing the impressions and reactions, the colors on the court, how the fans react to it. These are all things that could be tested in real time.
Well, one of the reasons I bring this up, and in some ways, I do think X or NBA Twitter or whatever, in some ways, and I don't know the actual statistics, you may know this about the participants around NBA discourse. How many people watch games, how many people are streaming games, how many people are listening to podcasts, how many people are participating on NBA Twitter. I don't know this, but in some ways, NBA Twitter is a good customer service survey. You're getting feedback, and ultimately, I think I would assume you're then making decisions or trying to make decisions around that feedback. How much did the discourse around load management influence the decisions made and the new policies in place around resting players, end of season awards, all of those things?
So my quick answer is it had a huge influence on me and on the league. I would just say, in terms of social media specifically, and I think this is the challenge for anyone who's overseeing a business or a brand that has a large audience, is to try to separate sort of what the majority view is, or what are the trends and the themes that you should follow, as opposed to what are the extremes. I mean, and I follow politics closely just as my personal interest. And I think I sometimes think about the way political discourse goes on social media, and it's pretty apparent it represents the extremes in most cases. And I think, again, back to the NBA, I find that I have to be careful in the same way that I don't want to necessarily let my schedule be dictated by the last email I got, that there may be a particular meme or thread on social media, but that it's impacting me disproportionately because it's not necessarily representative of our fans. Now, back to your specific question, I wouldn't just look to social media. In terms of player participation, the data is really clear. I mean, whether it's secondary market for ticket sales, a real-time market in terms of value, whether it's minute-by-minute ratings for games, whether it's streaming data. I mean, it's self-evident, but to the extent a star is not on the floor, and certainly when a star announces or a team announces before the game that star is not playing, that has a big impact on the interest. And I think also back to an earlier point where I think that, I and the league lost its focus a bit, is that, we went down that road of so-called load management. There, of course, is some legitimacy to it. But again, that may be self-evident to a certain extent as well.
But again, they also, but again, in real time, they got the feedback of the load management from the fans. The interest completely dropped off. And I'm pretty sure that they have analytics on it based off of the impressions and reactions on Twitter.
In terms of performance, and I separate two issues when it comes to load management. There's load management that supposedly can help prevent injuries, and then there's load management that's purely a performance issue. And again, you can speak far better about the impact of a back-to-back or 4 games out of 5 nights or anything than I can on your body. But I think, again, that's fairly intuitive even for weekend athletes, that if you're tired, you're not going to perform at as high a level. I think where, Joe Dumars has been speaking to this lately, where we're now starting to really push back hard on some of the data that where the suggestion was that you could prevent injuries from it. I think that the data is very inconclusive there. And, I've read some of the commentary, again, back to social media, like, they've discovered a religion. They're going into new media negotiations or whatever else. Frankly, we still have 2 years left on our existing.
Once again, Adam Silver, he is confirming that they're looking at the feedback from the fans in real time. The league must have not liked the overall narrative of just back-to-back games are a waste of time. Players are not putting in effort. It's just certain narratives that they've seen kind of form in real time. Or guys don't give efforts. The beginning of the season doesn't matter. The regular season doesn't matter. They could see all these threads in real time and see the overall sentiment that the fans are kind of having towards the game. See, the same way a meme goes viral and it kind of promotes the game, that's the positive side. But also the negative side is people online just saying, oh, it's the regular season. The players say it don't matter, so it doesn't matter. See, those negative comments, they spread around like wildfire. The same way the meme, which is funny and has a bunch of positive impressions, the same way that spreads around and it's a positive reaction, it applies the same way in the inverse with the overall negative narratives. And that particularly surrounds the regular season not being important.
We're paying attention every day. I think that this is an area where you needed multiple years of data, and the trend lines were going in the wrong direction. Guys, increasingly, we're playing fewer games and fewer minutes. And frankly, you don't need a super sophisticated analysis to see that it wasn't reducing injuries. I mean, there's also, this is more anecdotal, but there's a school of thought too that, particularly from some of the more veteran players or some of the retired players, that it could even lead to injuries, that if you get out of your rhythm, days off.
We've had a number of older players talk about
right.
that on the
And
podcast.
again, it's not, I think here where you then have to factor in the direct impact it has on the business. And this is a business. And whether it's the economics of ticket sales or ratings and fan interest in the game, or frankly, just frustration from fans. I get it. I'm a fan. And also I go to back to, traveling around in my schedule. I go to lots of games. I sit in the stands, just talk to a lot of people, or just, anecdotally, as I travel around, people just grabbing me. The player participation policy, the load management term has become so negative around the league that they're, definitely influenced by the discourse out there, and a recognition, incidentally, again, I haven't seen this as sort of league or team versus player. I think that, to the credit of the Players Association and particularly the vets, on the executive committee, when we sat down in collective bargaining, sure, there was some negotiation around what the right number of minimum games for, eligibility for awards, factoring in injuries and everything else. But there seemed to be complete agreement in the room that this was an issue, that this had gone too far, and that star players needed to be on the floor unless they were injured.
And it goes a little bit beyond just the star players. Younger players that just entered the league, that load management culture was so infectious. You got young guys saying, hey, when I'm going to get my load management night. That seems to be the sentiment coming in from the players that are freshly into the league the last, I would say, about 6 to 8 years. Guys have been coming in, they're 18, 19, and they're asking for their load management night. That's when the league realized, they've pretty much lost control on this. But Adam Silver was also asked about doubling back on his comments, saying that the science and data supported load management. Why the switch up this season? And also if he believes that the load management is coming from the players or the teams.
my sense was, and again, there were team representatives, largely team governors, and players in the room. And at the end of the day, I think everyone agreed it was coming from both sides. That yes, the growing training staffs, the computer programs that show he's in the red, et cetera, that was part of it. But also, and was coming, I'd say, more from the veteran negotiators, that it had become a thing a bit in the league.
There's a culture around it now. It got introduced, and now this is what the younger players
from younger guys. And I think the older guys were saying, all right, we'll take some responsibility for this, but this is ridiculous that the younger guys are now saying, that this should be my designated game not to play. And I just also address your earlier issue. First of all, no embarrassment from me to change my mind. I mean, I think that in terms of leading an organization, sometimes I look back to a second love is politics, where that's always viewed as a negative. If a politician changes his or her mind, I view that as growth, not necessarily a flip-flop. I will say, though, that back to my earlier point, I think there is good data in terms of performance. It's pretty definitive. There's no question that a tired player is not going to perform as well as one that's had more rest. And understandably, I've had conversations with coaches like Steve Kerr, for example, even very recently, about what is the optimal schedule? How many games should we have? Is there magic behind 82 and all that? And I don't think we're at the point where the data is sufficient where we can say, yes, we would be a better, putting aside the economic sacrifice, that's real, but that we would be a better league at 72 games. It's like, I think there's a lot of noise around the data on some of those issues, and we'll continue to look at it. But yes, I think on the injury side, I think as we've seen more information, and also I just want to go back to Joe Dumars. I think he has unique credibility, I would say, around the league, that his championships as a player, his championships as as a GM, as a leader of an organization.
Right there, Adam Silver, he's talking in marketing terms. He's using Joe Dumars. He's using Joe Dumars as the face of the anti-load management policy. Every time he mentions the data not supporting it, he mentions Joe Dumars. And he's using the fact that Joe Dumars played at a time when the league was considered much rougher. Guys were flying on commercial flights, and they were playing the full 82 games. So this is marketing language Silver is using to kind of crush the load management culture.
That Joe is in a position to command the kind of respect where when he's speaking directly to a team, even when he's speaking to the media, and he can say, and I hear this in my head a lot, that, we are an 82 game league, we have an 82 game season. Players are expected to play if they're healthy, not to roll the clock back, not to play when they're hurt. Right. I mean, he's like, and the other thing I'm learning, from, our mutual friend, Coach K, that it's not just leadership, but one thing, having been around him, particularly not just from my time at Duke, where I hardly knew the guy, but from his coaching of the national team, is that the messaging and the consistency of the messaging is really important. And I think that's also where the league fell down a bit, because what I've heard directly from some of the players, and even from our coaches, I'd say more in our teams, is that we in the league office, and this is what Joe has been doing and I've been trying to do as well, have to do a better job setting expectations. Because if you're not talking about it enough, and this goes back to my earlier issue about sort of back to basketball, my background at the league, before I was the deputy commissioner of the league, I ran an entity here called NBA Entertainment. It's just what it sounds. I mean, I was not focused on the game itself. I was focused on the business around the game. And I think it's easy to get caught up in all the excitement. And it's part of our DNA, not just NBA Twitter, but when you think about the culture of this league, all the things you talk about in your podcast, the fashion, the food, the cities, it's part of what creates enormous interest in this league. But it's easy to forget that all of that interest only follows
the game.
And so I'm so glad you asked me these questions. And I think that we, the league, then have to do a better job in saying, this is what our expectation is. I recognize players and teams won't always meet that expectation, but it goes to that North Star, even as you were saying in your own life, like, what do you think about when you wake up in the morning? And again, I'm learning on the job as I go. I've been with the league for a long time, but I love being part of this league and feel this enormous obligation, again, to continue growing the game and to learn from, what's happening in society at large, but also from mistakes I feel I've made along the way.
So in the last few years, we've all seen the entertainment aspect of the game kind of has taken over a little bit. And we could see this no further than the All-Star game. Just the introductions, the selecting of team members, the halftime show. The entertainment aspect of the game has fully taken over so bad that the product suffers. And the number one product that has definitely suffered the most is the NBA All-Star game. I believe Silver is protecting the other 82 games from not going through the same type of conundrum. Because last season, I don't know if that was the worst All-Star game I've ever seen, but that whole event was about entertainment. Just the intros were way too long, the halftime show was just way too long, and then the game was just nothing but a joke. And it makes you wonder how serious can the players participating in the game can even take it, because it's just so much hoopla going on around the game. But since this is the inaugural season of the in-season tournament, it kind of serves as a counterpunch to the league and just their games not really being taken serious. As we've seen in real time, Adam Silver has measured the social media impressions, and they've been pretty positive for the in-season tournaments, especially with the different style of basketball courts, just the different colors. This overall rollout has been pretty impressive, especially visually to watch on television. And the league has gotten pretty much positive impressions, and the ratings were up for those Friday games. But overall from Silver, it's great to hear that the league is actually focused on just everything being about the game and then things evolving around that. And also the league kind of paying attention to what fans want and catering towards those needs in real time using social media to see what things they react positively about. One thing I hope that they could take into consideration is all these replays and delays of the game. Some teams lose momentum with all this stoppage during the game. So hopefully they're measuring that stuff in real time to see the fans' reaction. And at some point, I'm pretty sure they're going to cut down on that stoppage of play, as it does affect teams. But Adam Silver, once again, he has a lot of things coming at his plate at the same time. And I believe overall, since he's been in the league, he's done a good job. He's done a good job, and he shows that he can adapt and he's willing to try new things. So James Harden did his first sit down as a Clipper, and he gave a few thoughts on his Philadelphia exit. And before we get to what he said, I'm going to say this. James Harden kind of finds himself in the same situation as Kyrie Irving, where they had a few breakups, some of them justified. But at the end of the day, everyone's looking at you as a consistent factor in all those breakups. So it's time to prove yourself. And the type of roster the Clippers have, especially with Russell Westbrook, there's going to be little room for errors. And when I say errors, I'm talking about small errors. The off-ball movement, not being quite as sharp in defensive pick and rolls. James Harden being a catch-and-shoot guy, which is already suspect, but we're going to see how that fit works. And even though the Clippers did get James Harden, that still doesn't solve their issue with their main rival, which is Jokic. Because the same problems he gave him in the bubble, they still have yet to solve those issues. And with the addition of James Harden does create some new circumstances for the Clippers. How will Russell Westbrook respond in his role changing once again? Same thing for guys like Terrence Mann. But at the end of the day, James Harden wants his money. He's in an excellent situation. He just has to prove himself as Steve Ballmer, and the Clippers are entering a brand new arena. And Steve Ballmer in particular does need a name and attraction to sell some of these tickets and keep up that team's billion-dollar evaluation. But before we get to hear from James Harden, let's take a look at some of the smoke the Mavs play-by-play announcer had for James Harden. Boy, his mic was on fire.
Ask the producer to pipe this into the Clippers locker room. If I can talk to you, James, I hope you're taking notes. I'm telling you in advance, you're welcome for the wisdom I'm about to spew. Because, listen, I get on my knees every night and pray for someone to believe in me like Daryl Morey believed in you. You wanted a certain coach, they brought in Mike D'Antoni. You want to play a certain style, they played it. You wanted Dwight Howard, they brought him in and got rid of him when you were tired of him. You wanted Chris Paul, they brought him in and got rid of him when you were tired of him. They brought in your old friend Russell Westbrook. You want to go to Vegas on off days? They looked away. You wanted the team to stay over so you could go out at night. They changed the schedule, and it didn't work. And you know what? You said, I'm going to break up with my whoopee. Not good enough. I see the bright lights in New York. I want to go there. My old pal, Kevin Durant. It's going to work. The big three. And all after 1 year, you want it out. You realized, oh my gosh, I took this guy for granted, the guy that believed in me. I went back with Daryl Morey. They traded Ben Simmons for you. How did they pull that off? And you know what? You went there and you got a partner who got the MVP. He won the MVP. And what did you say afterwards? You said, they didn't hand me the reins. You're the point guard. You were holding the reins. And what did you do when you had the reins? You scored 9 points in Game 7 against Boston. You blew a 3-2 series lead. So they fired their coach. Not good enough. You broke up with your guy, believed in you again. You said, the bright lights of L.A., that's where I want to go. Let's see if that works. Listen, James, have you ever had those friends who had bad roommates? Over and over, they complained about their bad roommates. This guy's terrible. The bad roommate here. They never thought to be self-aware enough that they're the bad roommate. They're the problem. Hey, James, you're the problem. If this doesn't work this year in this system with this team, then you're going to go and point fingers at everybody else, and you're going to go back home and you're going to start swiping right for another team, and there's not going to be anybody left. Because, James, you're not the beard, you're not the system, you're the problem.
Oh, and the mic drop, Devin.
Sheesh. Oh man, somebody, pour some water out on that mic, man. Someone put the fire extinguisher on that mic, boy. Whew, he was speaking facts. But now James Harden is in his hometown with his original friends, Paul George, another LA kid, and Kawhi Leonard. And then apparently they go way back. But let's see what James Harden had to say. Every once in a while, I'll check in.
But that last situation in Philly, those fans were really, really great. Teammates was great. Leaving Brooklyn, which was a funky situation, and going to Philly, leaving a lot of money on the table from Brooklyn, going to Philly. Once again, last summer, taking $26 million less to be able to sign and make the team better and the organization better. Changing my role, which media is, is ball dominant, which my ball dominance is really effective.
Which is wrong. That's where James Harden finds himself at a conundrum. He believes his ball dominance was effective in order to get to the highest level, that's a flawed perspective off rip. That's pretty much the main flaw of James Harden. Your ball dominance is great for the regular season, but in playoff time, it's pretty predictable and you're playing against smarter defenses. So it seems like this is a false confidence Daryl Morey had in James Harden.
But changing my role, trying to change the narrative, trying to sacrifice and do whatever it takes to win at the highest level. Like, whatever people talk about and say, I just want to win at the highest level. So taking less money, sacrificing the role, that's not talked about. It's talked about the other, BS. But, and it just didn't work out. So me leaving Brooklyn and thinking I'm going to retire as a Sixer, and the front office had other plans. They didn't want me. And it's that simple. So, and there's more detail, more, to where I can't talk about, but there's a lot of narratives. I don't have social media, but there's a lot of narratives and people talking and they have.
That's interesting right there. He said he doesn't have social media. A lot of these athletes and a lot of these entertainers and celebrities, they do pay people to run their social media platforms. And a guy that receives a lot of criticism like James Harden, the fact that he's not even aware of it, it shows you that he could possibly be in a bubble where he gets a lot of praises from people around him. This is why sometimes you see athletes and certain celebrities out of touch. They're completely surrounded by yes men and people that praise them. But James Harden being away from social media, it does have a double-edged sword. In a way, you don't want to end up like Kevin Durant having burner accounts responding to people. But at the same time, due to human nature and just James Harden being a wealthy celebrity, he's going to be naturally surrounded by a bunch of yes men. So it kind of leaves you in a bubble and you don't know what flaws to overcome, especially after a certain amount of time. All those years he's been in Houston, it's clearly obvious that he's sort of been this player that's been catered around. He's almost been sheltered. And for superstars sometimes to break out of it, they have to get out of that mold. We've seen it with Michael Jordan. Phil Jackson criticized him. We've seen it with LeBron James going to Miami. Pat Riley actually put him in a system where he couldn't just play that LeBron James style. He had to almost sort of make sure that his game fit around the Miami Heat framework. And that Heat culture overcame that LeBron James, I'm a superstar in a small town Cleveland type of lifestyle. And with LeBron James, him going to Miami, he had to sort of make sure that his game fit under the Miami Heat framework, under that Heat culture. LeBron was not bigger than Heat culture when he went to Miami. It may seem like that from the outside perspective with the fans, but within those locker rooms, he was not bigger than the culture that Pat Riley established down there. So Pat Riley actually held him accountable. I'm pretty sure they had certain criticisms towards LeBron James and his game and what he needed to change to make sure that they reached to the highest level. All superstars go through this. Same thing for Kobe Bryant. Phil Jackson criticized his game. But James Harden, it's clearly obvious Daryl Morey has catered around him, and just him not being in social media, he's clearly in a catered bubble. And for the many of Kobe Bryant fans out there, as you guys already heard from Kobe Bryant himself, he said that the James Harden style and just the overall that one-on-one ISO dribbling nonstop, it cannot win at the highest level. So the Kobe stands, they know what I'm talking about.
People think they have an opinion or a voice, and other people listen to it, you know what I mean? But none of that is true. You know, I'm not the type to go back and forth or be explaining myself, because you're always going to take something out of what I say and make it into a different story. So long story short, I'm happy I'm here. I'm excited to be able to show how good individually and how good this team can be and is going to be.
But James Harden also spoke about his previous engagements in Brooklyn and Philadelphia. And with the Brooklyn Nets, it seems like that was the only situation where he was right to leave that franchise, as they clearly was not ready and just didn't have an ecosystem in place where stars can actually thrive within a framework. As you've seen with Kyrie Irving and KD, they said they don't really need a coach. They could be the coach. So the Brooklyn Nets didn't really have a framework in which players could play under and actually be held accountable.
The Brooklyn situation was just, you know, it was a lot, but not in the sense of, you know, me. I think it was the injury aspect of it. You know, I mean, I had never really been injured in my career, so just trying to fight through the injury and prepare myself and get myself out. Like even in that playoff series, you know, I strained my hamstring a grade 2 and still come back and try to play. Like that was just frustrating for me, you know what I mean? So that was that. And then Philly is just, you know, changing my role, knowing I can give more, knowing I can do more. But if you want to be honest, like being on a leash. And like me knowing in order for us to get where we want to get to, I was going to have to be playing my best offensively, whether it's facilitating and scoring the basketball, and Joel as well. And I never really, you know, had that opportunity. So I think all that plays into where I am today, where whatever T. Lue and the coaching staff needs me to do, you know, I've been prepared and been in both situations, whether me scoring, you know, 15, 16 points or scoring 30, like as long as we win the game and everybody's feeling confident and good about themselves. That's all that really matters.
Now with James Harden right there, it doesn't make sense that you feel like you had to sacrifice yourself just for Joel Embiid. Now that you're on the Clippers, aren't you going to have to sacrifice yourself for Kawhi, PG, and Westbrook? Isn't that more cluttered? See, the thing is now we're starting to see the results in Philadelphia as the 76ers actually play with faster pace now. Guys like Tyrese Maxey are more free to operate, and what's pretty much gone under the radar is that Tyrese Maxey, in a way, kind of pulled the leverage that you had on the 76ers. When you were absent for this short period in the beginning of this season, Tyrese Maxey, in a way, is sort of elevated without you being there, and it's kind of taken your role and actually has produced almost similar production numbers as you. And other aspects of the Philadelphia 76ers games have actually showed up because of this. We see Tobias Harris actually playing more free. He's not actually just waiting at the three-point line waiting for a pass. Other guys in the bench are actually more involved, even the guys that got traded, Nicholas Batum and Kelly Oubre. But it's not ironic that they traded away Harden and PJ Tucker, as PJ Tucker numerous times have mentioned that he had James Harden's back, especially the fact that James Harden took a pay cut so he can join the team. And I wouldn't be surprised if these two together have actually divided the locker room. But at the end of the day, the 76ers right now, they have that like togetherness about them. Everyone's laughing, smiling, the ball's moving. Things look a lot different.
When I'm in a leash, I'm not meant just shooting the basketball every time. I meant like I think the game, and I'm a creator on the court. You know what I mean? So if I got a voice to where I can, hey, coach, I see this. You know, what you think about this? Then it's like, oh, okay. Like somebody that trusts me, that believes in me, that understands me, that I'm just not I'm not a system player. I am a system. You know what I mean? So somebody that can have that dialogue with me and understand and move forward and figure out and make adjustments on the fly throughout the course of games. That's all I really care about. You know what I mean? It's not about me scoring the basketball, scoring 34 points. Like, I've done it already. So that's what I meant by that.
Now, with those last few comments, I'm wondering if James Harden is referring to Doc Rivers, because the 76ers do have a brand new coach in Nick Nurse, and he's never really had the opportunity to coach James Harden. So they clearly were entering this season with a different system in place. So a lot of the criticisms James Harden had for the way the 76ers were using him, I'm wondering if he's aiming that criticism towards Doc Rivers. If he's had an issue with the coach, the 76ers had made the change. Nick Nurse is more free-flowing offense. But at the end of the day, James Harden is in prime position to try to improve himself to get his money. Steve Ballmer, he has deep pockets. The Clippers are trying to elevate and take a step up towards winning a championship, which is also something that James Harden wants. The only thing with this team is that they don't have as much room for error. James Harden's defense on these pick and rolls has to be on point. His communication also has to be on point. And how will he perform in catch and shoot situations? As we've seen through the years, there's been a lot of Stephen Curry imitators, but one thing Stephen Curry does is that he can shoot off ball as well as creating for himself while he's on the ball. Because in all the previous teams James Harden played for, when was the last time we really seen him move off ball? To his credit, we did see James Harden change his game with Mike D'Antoni when he started, making more passes. His assist went way up. The Rockets were winning over 60 games. I do give him credit on that aspect. But now his role has definitely changed once again. It's a lot harder for him now because he's going to have to move off ball. And when he's open for three, he's going to have to catch and shoot. I've seen James Harden be wide open, catch the ball, put it down on the floor once, and then shoot. So that's not a habit of his. But the Clippers are also going to have a lot of advantages. On a lot of switches, there's going to be a mismatch. Teams are going to put their top two defenders maybe on Kawhi and PG, and James Harden is going to go one-on-one with someone that they don't want him going up against. Maybe a weaker defender right there. Or same thing, vice versa. The Clippers are definitely going to scare a lot of teams because their weakest defender is somehow going to end up on one of these guys. But at the end of the day, we're going to see how well Harden adjusts his game. And the Clippers do have the right basketball mind in Tyronn Lue to try to make this all work. So there's almost going to be no excuses. You have an owner with deep pockets, you have a great basketball coach, and you have a bunch of great players around you to win a championship. James Harden got exactly what he wanted. So at the end of the day, we'll see how this plays out. The only thing that's left is for Harden to prove himself. So various sports leagues throughout the years have always tried to tap into the female audience. And this fall, we've seen it perfectly executed with the NFL and Taylor Swift, which has pretty much resulted in the Kansas City Chiefs having a 63% jump in viewership in females from ages 18 to 49, a 400% spike in Travis Kelce jersey sales, and his podcast jumped to the #1 spot on Apple and #4 on Spotify out of all sports podcasts. This Taylor Swift merger that some would say is definitely has shown a proof of concept, as the female audience in sports is pretty much still an untapped market. Now, the NBA has struck a deal with Kim Kardashian and her brand Skims to be the official undergarment of the NBA and USA men's basketball. And this is what I would call the Taylor Swift effect, where the Kardashians have a long history of moving product online and accessories and just using their major influence along with the major distribution of the NBA. This is almost a marketing match made in heaven, because it's not particularly about the male audience, it's about grabbing the attention of the female audience. And this is just not a domestic move, it's definitely a global play here, as Skims already had international superstars like Neymar promoting the brand and just being one of their ambassadors. And now with the NBA increasingly becoming this global league, they're going to have multiple walking ambassadors of this brand being international. So this could end up becoming a major play. And when you combine that with the influence of the Kardashians, particularly with the younger sister, just having a hold on the younger female demographic, they could get a lot of sales out of this. It has the potential of being similar to how lucrative it was for the NFL to kind of promote Taylor Swift, where all parties could benefit. But definitely that female audience definitely moves the needle. And these sports entities understand that. They're the ones that are doing a lot of the purchasing, and they do hold a lot of the influence of the tastemakers. But Adam Silver spoke about just being more ingrained with the entertainment side, and how when he first started working for the league, that was his particular area of expertise and not the game itself.
And this goes back to my earlier issue about sort of back to basketball. My background at the league, before I was the deputy commissioner of the league, I ran an entity here called NBA Entertainment. It's just what it sounds. I mean, I was not focused on the game itself. I was focused on the business around the game. And I think it's easy to get caught up in all the excitement.
And the business side of tapping into that female audience is definitely lucrative, especially when you have not only the influence, but the sex appeal in order to sell it. So before I get out of here, you guys definitely check out the mailbag in the description below. Leave a voicemail with your questions, your statements, and I'll definitely feature it as a segment on the show. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.